Hello, you wonderful people. So for today's video, I want to share another nerdy quirk of mine, and that's related to TV shows, whether they get renewed or canceled. Basically, I have this weird quirk where I'm afraid to look up whether a show is canceled or being renewed for another season. Why? Like, what I mean is, like, I won't look it up. I'll just kind of hope and pray, because I think somewhere in my mind, I don't know where this started, but it's like, as long as I don't look at it, it's not definitive. So it's like, you know, because sometimes I'll actually be surprised when a show gets renewed, because I'm like, oh wow, yeah, it did get renewed for another season, just because I never look it up. There are occasions where I do, but more often than not, I won't. And that's why I talk about that sometimes, because I'll be like reviewing the finale of a show and I'll be like, oh yeah, I don't know if this is getting renewed or not, because I legitimately didn't look it up, because I don't want to look it up, because it's just this little, like I said, this little hope that, hey, if I don't, then even if it's getting canceled, I won't know. It's just the sadness of, like, just that, oh, when it's something like, hey, I'm like, I like this show, and I go and find out, oh, it was canceled. So, because I don't know, like, at least if I, like I said, ignorance kind of makes you think like, oh yeah, no, everything's fine, everything's gonna keep going. It's like, well, Michael, then what happens when you eventually, like, you know, this show just doesn't come back? Well, there are some occasions where it's just kind of like, well, some shows take longer to come back in that regard. So that's a real, like, surprise. And I'm like, oh wow, I just assumed it was canceled because I didn't hear nothing. It's been over a year, and just, okay, never mind, that's awesome. And other occasions, I just eventually finally look it up, and then I'm hit with disappointment, like, oh man, that sucks. I know it's such a weird thing, but it's just, because to me, like, the whole cancellation or renewal process is very weird. I mean, I guess it makes sense in the grand scheme of things, but it just doesn't make sense to me, because, like, to me, I feel like you should ultimately make the decision at the end of a season. Like, to me, that's just the most logical thing of, like, oh yeah, wait till all the viewership and ratings and reviews are out, and then you go like, okay, then you make the decision. But I guess, like, you have to do it early enough where it's kind of like, okay, so production can go ahead and get started or something, so that it can eventually, the next season can fit some certain time slot that's been set. Like, I don't know how the whole situation worked. I've never actually read into it. I probably should really read into it. But, like, a great example would be, like, iZombie. Like, that's kind of one of those examples of, like, that, like, at least when it came to Raul Coley talking about the show getting renewed for a 5th and final season, that was, like, after, like, episode 11 had aired. So it was, like, 2 episodes were left in the season before it was like, oh yeah, the show is being renewed. Because sometimes it seems like, I think you'll know by, like, the halfway or 2/3 ways through a season whether something is coming back or not. Like, it's never like, oh yeah, the season finale aired and now we decided to you know, it's just so interesting like that. I guess when you look at the numbers, like, you know, the ratings and just like the reviews and stuff like that, you can just predict how things are going. So if you go like, oh yeah, like, the show's not doing it's doing bad, and it's just going to continue to just cut it loose because it's not worth it. Like, I don't know, like, I'm just assuming, is that how that operates like that? There is, like, opposite examples of that where it's like a show gets renewed for a second season even before the first season airs. Like, I think the only show I'm aware of that was like that was the TV show Outcast, but that kind of gets a little wonky when it comes to Netflix stuff, because of the nature of Netflix stuff, when you can basically watch all the episodes all at once. There's that wiggle room of, like, okay, like, I feel like typically, not always, you'll find out maybe a month later, because I randomly ended up finding out about Ozark season 3. I was looking up something for, I think, a thumbnail for a video, and it just came across something being like, oh yeah, Ozark's getting renewed for a 2nd season. It was like the news had just dropped like 2 hours prior to me watching. I was like, oh, it's been over like a month, and now it just came out like that. I guess that's a situation where I guess it fits more of what I wanted it to, I guess, where it's like they're giving it more wiggle room to see all the numbers coming in, and then ultimately making their decision, which I guess in the long run of things is probably the best way to approach that. I mean, I'm not a businessman. I don't know, like, you know, how you would normally go about that. I say all that, but I can't forget there are also the situations where, like, even at the end of, like, a, you know, typical televised season, it's like, honestly, we still don't know whether or not we're going to renew this or not. Because for me, I don't know if that is better or worse for me with my little quirk, because it's like, at the very least in that regard, it's like, oh, the end of the season's come, all the data's out there. At least you have the full scale of the season and be like, okay, whether or not this is something that's doing well enough for it to continue or not. Like I said, any other situation, I feel like if you do it mid to earlier, I feel like it's kind of like, oh yeah, you're just like, you're not getting a full scope of how people in general felt about the show. It's just my opinion. I don't know how networks operate. Like I said, that's just my little nerdy quirk about it. Let me know in the comments down below if that's something that do you feel that same way? Do you kind of have that same nerdy quirk, or is it just a situation of like, nah dude, you're on your own? But really, that's all I want to talk about in this video. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good